Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In the previous class, we have discussed FRS on event after the balance sheet date, right? Event after the balance sheet date, or event after the reporting date, which is FRS FRS 110. For today, we're going to look at inventories. FRS 102. Okay, inventories. A few questions came up in your final exam with regard to inventories, which is FRS 102. Okay. So here, first we're going to look at the definition of inventories given by FRS 10102. The definition. Okay. Before that, let me put this. Okay, FRS 102 talks about how to recognize value inventories in your financial statements, especially in your statement of comprehensive income and also statement of financial position. Okay. For inventories, normally you find inventories in current asset, right? In your financial position in current asset, and then you have the figure, certain figure here. Actually, these inventories is comprising of a lot of different types of inventories. Okay, different type of inventories. It comprises of goods which is bought for resale. It comprises finished goods which has been manufactured. It also comprises of work in process and also raw materials. Okay, so what we're going to look closer here today in our session for today, FRS 102, we're going to look at the definition, measurement, and disclosure, more or less lah. Because when we talk about FRS is the standard for accounting standards for in Malaysia. Normally they talk about how do we recognize, measure, and disclose the items in the balance sheet and financial statements. Okay, so inventories, first we're going to look at definition of inventories given by FRS 102. The definition normally given by FRS 102 is inventory is an asset. Okay, it is an asset. An asset which is held for sale in the ordinary course of business. If you are in the course of business of selling cars, then you buy and sell cars, right? And then if you are in the business of selling timber, then your timber will become your inventories. Okay, so this is inventories which is in the ordinary course of business. Okay, say inventories. Inventories is also assets held for sale. At the upper part here, it says that held for sale. Okay, held for sale. Okay, held for sale here. Okay, held for sale. Held for sale here in the process of production of such sales. Such sales here means for sale, this sale. Okay, held for sale. So asset, inventory is also asset in the process of production, meaning that you have inventories where you produce your own inventories. A manufacturing company lah, normally kan, manufacturing company, they manufacture their own product and then they sell their own product. So this is also inventories. Inventories include asset in the process of production of such sales, and also asset in the form of raw materials. Raw materials also it is categorized as inventories or closing stock. To be consumed. Raw materials to be consumed in the production process or in rendering your services if you are in a service industry or in the service companies. So inventories, the meaning, the word inventories here means a lot of things. Not just goods for sale. It's also goods that you have manufactured. It also refers to work in process and raw material. Okay, raw material. So it includes goods which is purchased and held for resale. If you are a trading company, trading companies mean you buy and sell goods, and you buy goods and you sell goods. So that is a trading company. So in a trading company, the inventory will consist of goods which is purchased and held for sale. Okay, but if you are a manufacturing company, the company that manufactures your own goods, it becomes your finished goods. Your finished goods becomes your inventory. Okay, the inventory. And if you're also a manufacturing company, you also have not only the finished goods, there are partly finished goods. Okay, partly finished goods because it is in the process, still in the process. This is known as work in process or work in progress. Okay, so work in progress or work in process is also categorized under inventories. And you also have in the manufacturing companies raw materials that you use to produce your finished goods. Okay? So raw materials also falls under inventories. Okay? So this is the definition of inventories, which is covered under FRS 103 and 102. So FRS 102 covered the scope of inventories which is held for sale, inventories in the process for production of such sales, and inventories in the form of raw materials. So this is the scope of inventories under FRS 102. There are other inventories which is aquaculture, all those things. This is not included in under these inventories. Okay, that if you read further in FRS 103, it covers a lot of other things that related to inventories, which is not included in FRS 102. Okay, but for your course, for the purpose of this course, we only concentrate on these 4 types of inventories. Okay, which is goods purchased and held for resale, and finished goods or finished product, and work in process, and also lastly the raw materials that you use in producing the inventories. Okay. Now the next thing is which is important for you, especially in your final exam, is the measurement. How do you measure inventories in your financial statement? Okay. How do you measure inventories or closing stock in your financial statement? Inventories or closing stock in the financial statement will be measured according to this rule. The rule says that it should be measured lower of either cost or net realizable value. You have to choose. You have to choose between cost or net realizable value. Okay, which one is lower? Okay, whichever is lower. Therefore, you have to look at 2 information. First, you have to look at the cost of the goods and the net realizable value of the goods. You have to know what is the cost of the goods and the net realizable value. First, the cost. So what does it mean, cost, under FRS 102? Under FRS 102, the cost of a product, okay, the cost of a product should include the cost of the purchase of the product. Okay, the cost of the product itself when you first bought it. Of course, when you first bought it, in the receipt, they will mention how much is the cost of the product itself. If you buy it from outside or overseas, then you have to pay for import duties, right? And any taxes that you have to pay on the product, right? Like GST, specific taxes on the product, and also you have to pay any directly attributable costs of the product. Directly attributable costs. If you are a manufacturing company, you manufacture, okay, Then you have other costs such as overhead costs, direct materials, direct labor kan. And then discount, okay, installation cost. Yang ni bahagian any directly attributable cost ni includes such as installation cost, carriage cost, carriage by trucks, and then less discount or rebate kan in your receipt kan. So you ambil yang net amount tu kan, net amount. So this is what it means by the cost, okay. And also if it is if the product is a manufactured product, so it consists of direct material, direct labor, plus overhead, fixed overhead and variable overhead, right? This will become the cost of the product, okay. And other costs incurred to bring the product to the present location and condition, okay, ready for sale, okay. This should exclude abnormal waste of direct material or direct labor, unnecessary storage costs, administration overhead and selling costs. Should exclude this cost lah. Okay, so this is what it means by costs. Okay, by cost. Okay, this is how you measure cost of the product. This part here, up to here, is for product which can be specifically identified. Okay, specifically up to this, specifically identify to the product. Maknanya cost tu memang untuk produk tu saja, very unique untuk produk tu saja. Maknanya dia tidak ada banyak produk lah, maknanya unik untuk produk tu saja yang kita boleh tentukan. Kalau produk tu jenis yang interchangeable, maknanya dia various produk tapi dia boleh similar, lebih kurang aja produk dia, dan kita guna interchangeable items. Untuk interchangeable items kita guna cara FIFO ataupun weighted average cost. Okay. Kalau kita boleh identify the cost of the product to specific product, maknanya kita guna yang tu lah, yang biasa, direct labor untuk produk tu kan, semua tu, then cost of purchase untuk produk tu, memang kita guna yang tu. Tapi kalau produk tu jenis yang kita keluar dia banyak, keluar manufacture mass production, and then kita ada banyak jenis yang sama aja, lebih kurang sama aja kan. And then at the end of the year kita ada produk tu, finished goods tu, and then kita nak value dia punya value of the closing stock tu, kita akan guna FIFO method ataupun weighted average method. LIFO kita tak boleh guna under FRS 102. Kita akan guna FIFO ataupun weighted average cost. Okay, and then any one that you have choose, whether it is FIFO or weighted average cost, you must be consistent for similar nature of inventory and inventory used for the same purpose. Maknanya kena konsisten lah. Kalau nature of this inventory is group A, type A, guna FIFO. Jadi you guna FIFO. Type B kita guna weighted average. Maknanya all the type B punya product kita guna weighted average method. I think you have learned how to value stock using FIFO, weighted average. Okay? So this is interchangeable items. But items that can be specifically identified, like say, when you buy and sell cars, kan? You beli kereta Volvo contohnya daripada manufacturer. Harga dia memang untuk cost dia untuk Volvo tu, harga dia you beli campur delivery cost semua, import duties, 200,000 kan. Jadi 200,000 tu is the value of the cost of the Volvo, the car. Yang tu saja. Yang lain tak. Okay, untuk yang tu saja. Mungkin yang beli Volvo lain, model lain, cost dia lain kan. Jadi cost tu memang spesifik untuk that particular car. Very unique untuk that car saja. Tapi kalau car tu sama saja. Kalau ya ada mass production, Proton, you keluarkan Proton Saga, semua sama kan. At the end of the year you ada stock Proton Saga kan. You boleh kira guna FIFO or average method average method untuk value the stock. Okay, so that is cost. Cost tu bermaksud the purchase price plus import duties, taxes, any directly attributable cost, less discount or rebate. And it also include for manufactured goods, conversion cost, which is direct material, direct labor, and overhead. And it also include other costs incurred to bring the inventory to present location and condition ready for sale. But it should exclude, specifically should exclude abnormal waste or abnormal wastage of direct material and direct labor, unnecessary storage costs, admin overhead, and selling costs should not be included in the cost of the product, which is specifically mentioned by FRS 102 should exclude this cost. Should exclude this cost. And for interchangeable items, you can value the stock according to a method of FIFO or average cost method. Whatever you choose, whether FIFO or average cost method, it must be consistent with regard to each type of the product. If the product is group A, you use FIFO, then you should also use FIFO for every product which is categorized as group A or similar type. Okay, must be consistent because consistency helps in comparison. Okay, next, NRV or net realizable value. Okay, net realizable value. NRV here stands for net realizable value. Net realization or net realizable value. Okay, net realizable value. So what is net realizable value here? What does it means? Net realizable value here is amount expected to be realized from the sale or use of the asset. Maknanya it consists of selling price, estimated selling price, minus estimated cost of completion, and minus estimated selling cost. Selling cost maknanya cost to complete the sale. Cost to complete the sale. Net realizable value. And the notes that I have given you in your reference text yang saya dah email, ada example number 1 and example number 3. So if you take a look at example number 1, which is here, okay, example number 1, this demonstrate what is net realizable value means. Okay, in example number 1 here, we have SRT Berhad has in stock 100 units of product Y, which is acquired for 15 per unit. Okay, this inventory can be sold at $21. So this is the selling price, $21. This is the cost, the cost per unit. And the selling cost is estimated, this is the cost to sell it, selling cost there, $2 per unit. The net realizable value of one unit of this product should be is 21 less 2, this is net realizable value, less 2, which is the selling cost, okay, less 2, and that is 19. So net realizable value here is 19. Okay, net realizable value here 19. Cost is less than net realizable value. So cost is what? Cost here. The cost. This is the cost. Okay, this is the cost. 15. Okay, net realizable value is 19. Which one is lower? 15, which is the cost. Cost is lower. Okay, so this is cost. Okay, this is the cost. This is NRV. Okay, the cost is lower and 15. So the stock will be valued at 15. Okay, the stock will be valued as 15, and the cost, so it will be valued at 15, and the cost is the total unit we have 100. Okay, 100. That means 100 times 15, 1,500. So 1,500 will be included in the closing stock. Maknanya dalam financial position dia kat sini 1,500. Okay, kita ambil lower of cost or net realizable value, kan? Whichever is lower. So cost is lower, therefore 1,500 will be included there. Okay. Okay. Now, suppose it says that suppose the inventory were damaged and could only be sold. So what happens if it is damaged? Kan? The inventory you simpan dalam store, berlaku banjir lah contohnya. Banjir berlaku, air masuk, damage lah. The goods is damaged and can only be sold for $10. Can only be sold for $10 each. So what happens here? The net realizable value is now $10. Net realizable value, if you were to sell it, okay, becomes $10, which is lower than cost. And so now the net realizable value is lower, therefore we choose net realizable value as the cost of the inventory. So the cost of inventory now becomes 10 per unit. 100 times 10. 10 ni dia punya net realizable value, selling price dia. Tapi dia kata sini ada lagi, the net realizable value per unit will be inventory damage and could only be sold for, dia mungkin dia ada kat sini dia tak mention, mungkin lepas ni dia kena mungkin buat repair sikit ke kan. Jadi dia akan ada cost lain RM2. Jadi cost net realizable value dia is RM8. So RM8 ni becomes lower than cost. RM8 ni will be lower than cost. Therefore, it will become the cost of the product. So $8 times 100 will be 800. Okay. So in your stock or inventories in your financial position will become 800. Okay, because it is lower than cost. Net realizable value is lower than the cost. So that's how we choose to value inventories in the financial statement. We take the lower of net realizable value or cost, whichever is lower. So that's how we measure inventories. Okay. Another example is example 3, page 215. Okay, example 3, page 215 is here. Okay. Okay, here we have ABC, which is a car dealer. ABC buys used cars and recondition it and sell it to the customer. So at the end of year 4, ABC provided the following information on its year-end inventory of cars. So this is the cost of 5 cars. Dia ada 5 kereta, 5 cars. The cost is, this is the purchase price dia lah. Kita beli daripada orang. And cost incurred in reconditioning. This is for the cost incurred in reconditioning, baiki semua. Jadi total berapa kat situ? Total cost dia 65. And then further cost to be incurred for the cars to be saleable condition. Maknanya this is the amount of the cost to make the sale. The cost to make the sale. It is not the cost of the product, tapi the cost to make the sale. Okay? Mungkin advertisement, okay, delivery contohnya, to make the sale, installation contohnya. And then the selling price of reconditioned car is 130,000, 103,000. This is the selling price. Okay, selling price is 103. Required, calculate the cost and net realizable value. So the cost of the car would be the cost of the 5 cars, which is 40,000, plus cost incurred on the work done to recondition the car, 25,000, and the total cost is 65. This is the total cost of the car. So the cost of the car should be 65. Cost means the purchase price of the car plus cost in bringing the assets in present location and condition ready for sale. Ready for sale, which is 65,000. What is net realizable value? Net realizable value is the selling price. Okay, selling price minus cost to complete the sale, and cost to complete the sale. To complete the sale. So selling price, kita tengok kat sini, selling price dia berapa? 103. And then further cost incurred for the cars to be saleable, to complete the sale, will be 14. Therefore, 103 minus 14, that is 89. This is NRV. Okay, NRV. Remember NRV here? Net realizable value is estimated selling price minus estimated cost of completion and minus estimated selling cost. Selling cost to make the sale. Estimated cost to complete the sale. Okay, so selling price. Okay, so we have here selling price 103. To complete the sales 14,000. 89,000 is the NRV. Okay, so kalau kita tengok sini, which one is lower? Cost or NRV? Which one is lower? The cost is lower. So the cost of the car in the financial statement will be at 65. Okay. So dalam financial position, the cost of under current asset inventories, the cost of the car will be 65,000. Not 89,000, kan? 65,000. Because we choose the lower between cost or net realizable value. That is how we. So this is very important in your final exam. Normally the final exam will ask you this question lah. Choose the measurement question. Measurement of inventories. Inventory should be measured whether at cost or net realizable value, whichever is lower. Okay. Of course, you have to understand what is cost, what is net realizable value. Okay. Next, we're going to look at principal situation where cost, net realizable value is less than cost. There are situations, but normally most situation is that cost will probably be lower than net realizable value, right? As demonstrated in the example, there are times where net realizable value is lower than cost. When what happened? When you have damaged goods, right? Your goods has been damaged by flood or fire, and so these are situations where your NRV will be lower than the cost. What are the situations normally? Physical deterioration of, increase in cost of making the product or buying the product, or there is a fall in selling price. If the selling price for the goods has fallen so much so that it is below cost, so you have NRV is more than cost, and it's less than cost. There are situations where obsolescence of product, the product becomes obsolete, out of date. Out of date. For example, computers. Previously, you will be able to sell it at 1,000. After 3 years, it goes down to 800, or 600. So what happens? Because the product becomes out of date, new models coming up, faster model, and so on. And there are situations where physical deterioration of inventory condition, like fire, flood, caused by fire or flood. Okay, physical deterioration. And then company decide to manufacture and sell product at loss. Ini strategi, marketing strategy dia kan, nak kill the competitor. They decide to manufacture instead of buying it from the manufacturer themselves. They start to producing it at a cheaper price and sell it at a cheaper price to kill the competitor, kan? So this is what normally what happens to the situation where net realizable value is lower than cost. And then there is error in production, errors in the production or purchasing. Okay, purchasing. So these are situations where normally you have net realizable value is lower than cost. Okay, the fourth methods that relate to inventories would be how to write down to net realizable value. Okay, write down net realizable value must be item by item basis, or it could be on group basis. Okay, on group basis. Yang ni kita akan tengok example 4, page 216. Assessment of NRV, NRV ni assessment says assessment of NRV done at the same time as estimates made for selling price. It says mentioned there. That's how we write down. And something about replacement cost is the best measure if NRV is not available. Replacement cost ni ialah satu lagi cost yang ada sebagai choice, sebagai pilihan. Replacement cost ni bermaksud cost to replace the inventories. Where if you lost the let's say that hypothetically speaking that you want to the inventory now is damaged, right? It's damaged, and then you do not know how much can you sell it for. Faham tak? Damage tu you tak tahu berapa boleh jual ni. So you put yourself, kalau kita nak beli berapa harga dia dengan keadaan condition dia macam ni, kan? You boleh pergi tanya orang, kalau kita nak beli berapa you nak jual dengan keadaan condition yang macam dah damage tu lah, kan? You tanya orang replacement cost, kan? Itu maksud replacement cost, the cost to replace the inventory. Okay, So that's why they use here replacement cost is the best measure if NRV. Kalau you tak dapat nak tahu, tak dapat nak estimate how much is the net realizable value for this product because due to the damage of the product. NRV must be assessed at year end and compare against cost. So this is how you do it. Maknanya you kena ada dua benda. Satu cost, satu NRV, you kena compare one by one each group ataupun by group one by one. Okay, of identical product. This is specifically for items which is similar item can be grouped in similar categories. Kita buat macam itulah. Okay. And net realizable value rise minus previous written down amount must be reversed. Yang ni you tak pernah you tak perlu tahu sangat. Yang ni dah detail lah. Okay, next kita ada. Kita akan tengok example 4. Example 4 which is page 216. Example 4. Example 4 here. Okay. Here we have RST has the following items of inventory. Inventory ni ada banyak jenis, item A, B, C, D, E, F sampai I. And you can group this according to type. Okay, A ni is let's say vehicle contohnya. Dia according to type group 1 contohnya. D, E, F ni is katalah yang ni katalah lagi jual kereta. Yang ni SUV kan, ABC. Yang ni sedan, sedan. And then here small car contohnya, small car. Okay, so you can categorize it according to that. So it says that RST has the following items of inventory whose cost and net realizable value are given. So maknanya you ada dua benda, cost and net realizable value. Required, compute the value of closing inventory to be disclosed in the balance sheet. Write-downs are to be item by item and by group. So maknanya you boleh buat write-down ni according to, maknanya you boleh pilih according to group or according to item by item. So what happens is that if you are according item by item, you are recording net realizable value or by item, or you choose the net realizable value written down to net realizable value according to item by item. The rule is that you have to compare cost with net realizable value, whichever is lower. So let's say that here item A, you have here the cost is 200. And net realizable value is 400. Which one is lower? 200 is lower. So 200 becomes the cost of the item A, included in the closing stock or inventories. Item B, the cost is 250 and net realizable value is 200. Which one is lower? 200 is lower, which is net realizable value will be the cost of the item B. And C, 230 is the cost, 270 net realizable value. Which one is lower? The cost is lower, kan? 230. So you choose that. So all this up to here you get certain amount, right? 3780 becomes your closing inventory cost. Okay, closing inventory cost. That will be in your financial position. Okay, that is item by item basis. What happens if you use group? You can group this according to the type of the item, right? Type 1, you group 1. Type 2, you group it. Type 3, you continue group. So this is the cost and this is the NRV. Okay, which one is lower? Okay, so you total up first. Total up this, you get 680. Total up the NRV, you get 870. Okay, in terms of group. So total, which one is lower? 680. 680. So we choose by group 680 is the cost of group 1 stock inventories. For group 2, we have cost 1580, net realizable value 1320. Which one is lower? Net realizable value is lower, kan? So you choose net realizable value as the cost of the group 2. And group 3 we have 1970, group NRV is 2000. 1970 is the lower, so we choose 1970. And the total cost of this will be 3970, becomes the closing stock of your inventories in the financial position. Okay, so that's how we use the information given by FRS 102 on inventories regarding how to value inventories. It should be at the lower of cost or net realizable value. Okay, so I guess that's all for in terms of the theory part. And this part is not so important for your exam lah. But you need to know just the theory of it. Okay, when inventory is sold, normally kalau inventory dah jual, kan, tadi dalam kita tengok value dia dalam stok, kan, yang belum jual lagi. Apa kata kalau inventory tu dah dijual, ke mana dia pergi biasanya? Bila dah dijual, masuk dalam income statement lah, kan. You cost tu dia akan compare dengan sales price, kan. Sales minus cost of sales, kan. Betul tak? So kat sini maknanya inventory yang kita dah jual, when inventory are sold, the carrying amount is expense in the period where the revenue is recognized. Kan, you have sales minus cost of sales, kan. So this is the product which has been sold, and this is the cost of the product which has been sold. You compare, you match dengan matching concept, kan. So the carrying amount of inventory is in the financial position, kan, dalam balance sheet tu, will be matched with the sales revenue of the inventory. Okay. Any write down to NRV will be included in the statement of income statement. Okay, income statement. Katalah you ada inventory tu has been damaged, kan? You akan adjust dalam cost of sales. Faham tak? Debit cost of sales, credit apa? Credit normally inventory lah, inventory. Okay. Reversal of any write down to, ini kalau kita ada reversal. Tadi kita dah write down, lepas tu kita tengok naik balik. Kena reverse balik, kan? Kena reverse balik. Reduction in amount recognized as expense in the period reversal occurred. Maknanya kita reverse tu kita akan record it as an expense. But that is you tak perlu risau sangat yang tu. Yang you perlu risau ialah macam mana nak value inventory in the closing stock. It should be valued at cost or net realizable value, which one is lower, kan? Whichever is lower. So itu dah biasanya yang keluar dalam final exam. Okay, so let's take a look at final exam question. Okay, final exam question, normally the question will ask you, for example here, will be in question number 3. So question number 3 ni dia akan keluar sama ada FRS 110 revenue and balance sheet event after balance sheet date or inventories, dia keluar. So kat sini dia ada inventories. Soalan pertama A itu ialah revenue. Soalan ni revenue recognition. Soalan ni kita dah tengok ialah event after balance sheet date. Event after balance sheet date. FRS 110. FRS 118 revenue. Okay. FRS 118. FRS 110. FRS 110 event after balance sheet date. Here is FRS 118 revenue. Here is FRS inventory, FRS 102 inventory. Okay. So in this question part C, the cost of inventory is at 31st March. So this we have to assume the question here. Assume the financial year end for all situation is 31st March. So the financial year end is 31st March 2012. So the value is 78560, the value of inventories at the end. Okay. However, a physical inventory count reveal damages of some inventories. Mana inventory tu ada damage. Net realizable value is lower than the cost, kan? The net realizable value of the inventory was only 75450. Maknanya you kena, which one you should choose? Net realizable value. Maknanya you kena write off. Daripada 78560, you kena jadikan dia 75450. Which is berapa tu? Beza dia tu. How much? How much you have to write off? How much? Calculate. $78560 minus 75450. Berapa? 3,008, So, 3,008. 100. 3,110. 3,110. Okay. So 3,110 ni you kena debit apa? Debit cost of sales and credit inventories. 3,110. Kalau tengok jawapan dia, inventories ni jawapan dia. Inventory shall be measured at the lower of cost or net realizable value. Therefore, the amount of inventory should be readjusted to 75450. Maknanya you gonna pass through the journal entries lah. Debit cost of sales, credit inventories by 3,110. So that it will be valued at 75450. So this is the final exam question that will look like in your exam question lah. In your exam question number 3, normally it will ask FRS 102. Example dia macam ni lah. You kena buat soalan je. Jadi you kena bagi tahu how much should be valued, the stock should be valued at the end of the year. Another example, question number 3. It's more or less the same juga, kan? Inventories ni. The cost of inventories, you have to assume anything lah. Assume financial year end of situation is 31st October. Okay. So the cost of inventory at 30th September. 30th September maknanya 1 month before year end. However, a physical inventory count revealed damages to inventory. The realizable value was 60,000. So maknanya NRV is lower, kan? NRV is lower than the cost. So it should be measured at 60,000, right? So inventory should be measured at, your answer would be inventory should be measured at lower of cost or net realizable value, whichever is lower. In this situation, the inventory should be valued at 60,000, right? In this situation. Okay. Inventory shall be measured at lower cost and net realizable value. Therefore, the amount of inventory should be readjusted to 60,000. Okay. Tak banyak soalannya. Kontrak ni mungkin tak perlu risau sangat sebab yang ni saya tak akan masuk dalam exam. Kontrak. Sepatutnya tak discuss yang ni sebab kita hanya discuss FRS 102 ni on stock saja. Tak masuk work in process. Sepatutnya masuk juga, tapi saya tak akan tekankan lah on construction ni. Okay. So soalan on inventory tak banyak, 2 soalan je past year yang saya ada kat sini. Okay, so that's it lah for today with regard to inventories. For the next next class we'll go into should be cash flow lah. Okay, cash flow. But I would like to also make quizzes for publish account and also FRS, event after balance sheet date, FRS 110 and FRS 118 and FRS 102 for inventories. Saya nak buat quiz satu, and then quiz satu lagi untuk publish account. Yang saya belum buat lagi quiz untuk publish account kan, publish account. Just to test your understanding. But your result of midterm and quizzes that those that have taken is not very good, and that's, I think you should practice on doing exercises lah. I will give you some exercises later on, and I would like you to submit it to me on certain date lah. I will email you and then mention in your WhatsApp. Okay, so what you can do is that you just answer it and then take a picture of your answer, full page, so that I can mark. Tak perlu nak hantar physically, tak perlu. Faham Saya pun hantar pun melalui email saja. You dapat email tu ataupun WhatsApp tu, you just read the question and answer it in a piece of paper, and then take the picture, and then I will mark it. So make sure you take the picture full page yang jelas lah, full page yang jelas. Nanti saya akan proses dia jadi macam lebih jelas lagi lah. And then put your name lah, semua hantar pada saya. Okay. I think that's all for today. We will continue next class on cash flow in